good afternoon, everyone. So I'm so happy to be here to present my work with non-language teachers or non-linguists. So it's my, I think, first time to present my work to non-linguists or non-language teachers, and then I'll be very happy to hear what you are talking about it, because maybe you could provide me a totally different views. So basically, I'm teaching Korean at NUS last 12 years. So I've been observing the students from the classroom in online performance, and then it really triggered me to develop some of the language learning tool in independent setting. So, but at the same time, I was a bit lost when I cannot really monitor what they are doing in individual setting while studying. So that's how I get to study this project. Okay, so firstly, can I move it next? Okay, so this is our usual classroom. Students are very nicely engaged, and then they pay attention to what we are talking. At the same time, we are able to monitor them. So it's just nice, we can interact ideally and hopefully, and also we can actually observe them in their performance activities. But when it goes to the online learning, actually we don't know what actually they are doing. So also myself, sometimes I just start the e-lecture and don't really pay attention, and also I don't really interact with the lecture itself. So I was wondering how we can enhance their learning in individual setting like this. Although there is some downsides like this, we still encourage a lot of online learning. It's just, for many reasons. It's fashion, it's kind of trends, but at the same time, it's practically useful. So we can provide them additional venue to study their own, especially language learning. Only 3 hours per week is not limited. It's not enough at all. So they need some other venue to study language. So basically, we apply flipped learning, blended learning in our lecture in running the module, so that they can study some of the declarative knowledge before coming to the class, so that we can make use of what they learned from the e-lecture in the classroom. So the important thing is they need to really innate the knowledge that I provided in the e-lecture. But sometimes it just fails. It doesn't really happen all the time. So for different learners, the level of proficiency level, the level of understanding the knowledge can be very different. So this is another topic about the language classroom, is sociolinguistic competence. So it's we have some of language teachers here. So sociolinguistic competence is like how you can choose the appropriate structure, appropriate expression, word, according to the situation. So for this kind of physical activity, is something like we are using 2 feet to push ourselves up, but we have to use different vocabulary, right? And also in Singlish, many students, they can actually choose to speak different expressions based on the situation. So this is the bus driver want to explain the situation nicely in a kind of formal way, because he's performing his job, but it didn't really work out. So sometimes sociolinguistic competence is not really, there is some gap between speaker and listener. Yet we need to, as a language teacher, we need to teach them to differentiate what kind of expression is appropriate for what situation. So sociolinguistic competence is quite important in language learning classroom. Yet we have, due to maybe time limitation, or the context limitation, we cannot really fully deliver all the information to the student in the classroom in the limited time. So sociolinguistic competence was emphasized by many language teachers, also linguists. although this importance, we also know the importance of the sociolinguistic competence. It cannot be always, successfully delivered to the learners. So from this kind of observation, like student, doing the online learning without full attention sometimes, and sociolinguistic is important as much as knowledge. I try to adopt different kind of channels to give them additional information at their own time. So I try not to maybe sacrifice my lecture time, yet give them kind of additional venue to explore this kind of information. So the multimedia was chosen. Then I, based on this, science of multimedia learning, maybe many of you are very familiar with this structure. I try to adopt more channels like, visual and then auditory inputs. So I will just move on this, theoretical things, because I'm sure you know about this. So I try to, provide them more channels to get information so that they can construct the knowledge at their own time. And maybe they can make their own connection between knowledge. So based on that, after much consideration, a lot of discussion, I found very luckily this partner from Rakuten Institute of Technology. Yeah, so they are in Singapore. And I designed this motion dictionary. It's a media-based vocabulary search tool. And they provided me all this technical support with like drama licensing. So this is how movie came to the classroom to be used in language learning tool. So this motion dictionary, basically, if you go to the motion dictionary, it's a web-based link. And then motion dictionary, I created this different modules. So if they go there, they can find that each chapter has a new vocabulary they can find. So if they search the word, it shows the video clips. Then also the sentences it was used. So the idea is I extracted the sentences or context, image or video that the target word was used, and it shows on the video as well as the sentence structure. So students can search the word, then they will get various usage of the specific word, so that they can expose to various contexts, various interlocutors, and also different type of speech as well. So while providing them this tool, also I wanted to find out how much they can actually understand how much this kind of tool can help them in language learning. So I conducted a research just last December. So it's actually ongoing research, and I'm new to this kind of mixed methodology. So I'm working on this with analysis and then get much help from other experts and colleagues to understand what I gathered. So basically, I wanted to see strategies in terms of metacognitive activities. So what kind of strategies, learning strategies they are using while interacting with this motion dictionary, and also where they focus. So where they pay attention. Because there are many channels, so it's like video, audio, text, also text subtitle were provided. So I wanted to see where they pay attention. And also, for me, one of the very important keyword was metacognitive activity. So what kind of metacognitive activity they are using, so that universally they can use this kind of, actually they can transfer this strategy in learning any other disciplines. And also knowledge connection activities in multimedia learning. So meaning that is, as I mentioned earlier, is based on the cognitive theory of multimedia learning, so that I was interested in to find out more how they connect previous knowledge and the newly learned knowledge, and also auditory inputs and visual inputs and so on. So I used a mixed method. So I used a language background survey to collect some of their background, language performance background, home language, and if they had a prior prior experiences of learning other languages. And also I asked them to write about their experiences like journaling. And also I followed by a semi-structured interview. Then I gave them some strategy inventory for language learning. This is the inventory that developed by other researchers. So it's not my inventory, but it's an inventory developed by other researchers used in language learning area. Yeah, also I finally compared those kind of performance with the test outcome. So they are all in my class, so I could get their grade and their language performance in a formal assessment.
You didn't include in that list any of the data from using the app or the program, right? Did you have that?
Oh, actually, I'm able to access the backend. I'm able to access the backend system to identify their performance using motion. Yes, yes. But I haven't gone to that stage yet. Yeah, because the data is so much. So I'm doing more data that enhance now, more language performance. But it will be, yeah, it will be done. Yeah, so that's why we are working together with the Rakuten Institute very closely, because for them, it's one of the reason to support me is they want to develop this model into business model for them. Yeah. So the participants were 8 female students, 7 Singaporean, 1 Indonesian, but the student came to Singapore when she was very young, so she's like local student. So 1 Indonesian student was educated in Singapore. So nationality is still Indonesian, but whole family came to Singapore to live when she was younger. Then they were all advanced level of Korean, so it's the equivalent to 5 semesters of studying Korean at a formal setting at NUS.
How did you select these participants? They were the ones in the class?
They were, yeah, so voluntarily participated in the study. Okay. Yes, and they were all in the same module. Yeah, so the language proficiency level and also language learning experiences is more like manipulated.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's strategy, inventory, language learning, and their grade. So actually, I found out it's all correlated. So it's a memory strategy, cognitive strategies, the compensation, metacognitive, affective, and social strategies is all correlated to their grades or performance. But what I was most interested in was this metacognitive strategies. So I tried to see if they are correlated, and also depends on the questionnaires I had. So the specific questions are there. So it's 9 questions to measure their metacognitive strategies used in motion dictionary use. So most of them is out of 5. Then many students use these 2 strategies mainly. So they can notice the Korean mistakes and use that information to help me to do better. So it's like reflection. And also I pay attention when someone is speaking Korean. So it's like they are attending the auditory sense to understand the Korean language. And also another higher mark is like here. So I try to find out how to be a better learner of Korean. So they actually monitor their own activities. Yeah. So it's something quite meaningful because actually I haven't really asked any students about this before. It's my first time ever doing this a strategy inventory of language learning. And I found out students actually they do use metacognitive strategies. Then another findings is the video was not always helpful in figuring out the meaning of the new words. So actually students say it provides some kind of context so that they can understand the word better at certain level. So one student said, I could see this word is used in a formal context because they were all talking in the office. So they can make use of the video input to figure out how this how the word is used. So meaning sociolinguistic information was delivered to them. Then another finding was participants were compensating information from visual and auditory channels to construct, clarify meaningful connection in between. So one student said, I focus on the text because subtitle was provided. So there was Korean subtitle with English translation. Student actually look at the Korean subtitle to clarify if she was understanding by auditory input correctly. So she was not very sure if she was listening correctly of the Korean speech, but she was using this text information to clarify her understanding of the auditory input. Then another finding is some participants focus on structural information. So later on, I will talk more about the ethnological finding because the similar study was done in Korea with Chinese learners of Korean. So students actually at NUS, they focus a lot on how to form a sentence, what kind of sentence structure can be used to understand the meaning of the word, also how to form this collocation and so on. So it was quite interesting because when I did a similar study with the Chinese learners of Korean in Korea, they didn't mention anything about those kind of structural information. And there is some, if you know about Korean language and Chinese language a bit, there is some phonetic similarity. It's like Spanish and Italian. So you can guess the meaning of the word by searching through your own inventory of the language. So that students also here, they use the Chinese library to search similar pronunciation of the new Korean word to understand, to guess the meaning of this new word. But it's not always the case because some students who are not very confident in her Chinese, even though she was Chinese heritage, she said she just went to English translation before using Chinese knowledge. But many students, they need to go to the stage where they can actually identify there is a similarity between Korean and Chinese in phonetics, the sound system. And learners also they were motivated to go further. So when they find new vocabulary in the given sample sentences, they voluntarily look up that particular vocabulary to understand what it means. So actually it motivates them to study further and also do autonomous learning. So they use also a dictionary to clarify the word. I learned collocation and the expression. It brought me to the next stage from one word. So from one word, actually they move on to the next level. But they do it very differently. Some students, they search many different dictionaries, or some students, they use the same dictionary to search all the words that appeared in the sentence. Then another finding is dialect. So the video clip was not controlled by me. It's just a drama library that we can search through the specific word was spoken. So sometimes unexpectedly, this dialect was appeared in the sentence. Then some students had two opposite opinions. Some students found it very interesting, it's motivating. They say, oh, it's very different way of speaking, so I want to understand that too. But some students found it's very annoying, also disturbing for learning purpose. Yeah, they say, I'm not going to use that kind of dialects. Why do I need to know? Or why do I need to get exposed to that such sentences? And also some students, they provide me this mind map. So the students, they use the learned one word. There is English translation. So she had to study university in Korean, and then she drew this mind map without any instruction. She just did it on her own. So she wanted to clarify how her knowledge was constructed. So from these findings, actually I understood some differences between Chinese learners of Korean from my previous study and Singaporean learners of Korean in Singapore. So for instance, Chinese learners of Korean, they were studying Korean in Korea. They actually found visual information, they focus on visual information. Also, they just perceive the whole structure, whole image, whole concept without too much analysis. Then also they pretty much focus on the context, like who is talking, and then to whom the person was talking. And they found it very fascinating to understand diverse in meanings. And also the memory was very long lasting. So some of students, they reported that they've watched the same video clip only once, but could repeat the sentence exactly during the interview. So it was very interesting that students can remember the specific sentence after studying only one time. But Singaporean learners of Korean in Singapore, they were, they did a lot of language transfer, meaning they can compare Chinese and Korean. So from that evidence, I can say like they do conscious transfer of language knowledge. So they use Chinese knowledge in understanding Korean. And interesting thing is they do it consciously. So most of the people, they do language transfer, but they do it unconsciously. But here, our students, they did it very consciously, so it's something different from normal students. And also, they were very focusing on structural information. So I was wondering if it's because they are very test-driven. They want to get accurate information, how to use the vocabulary in the structure, so that they can form the accurate structure to get a score. I'm just speculating this, but anyway, they focus a lot on structural information. They talk about it like, oh, I could learn this word, I could form the sentence, or I learned a new structure that specific word can be used. So I was very, mono structure when I used the specific word, but now I can use the same word in different structure. So they found it very interesting. So it's another, example like collocation, and also they did a lot of further activities. So the Chinese students of Korean, they stay within motion dictionary. They didn't go any further by searching new word from the sentence given. They stay with the target word. While Singaporean learners of Korean, they freely explore new vocabulary. Also, they move on to another online dictionary. They even ask for the information from their friends. So like, oh, is the sentence okay? Can I use it this way? So they actually use multi-channel to verify their understanding. So it was very interesting to see, how they actually go further after using this motion dictionary in individual setting, like their own setting. Pedagogically, I found out like learners, they do use various learning strategies and they're interacting with the multimedia-based learning tool. But my question was, how can we encourage students to apply such skills in an independent learning setting? Because we cannot monitor them. So how can we encourage them to apply the appropriate skill to their learning? Then how can they maximize their learning by applying the right skills or strategies? Then, yeah, and also what they attend actually matters. Some students, they are very auditory driven. Some students are very visual oriented. So if there is specific information that I want to focus or I want to deliver, how can I make it outstanding? So that's one of the questions that I had. Then also meaningful metacognitive activities were performed. Then do we need to guide them to do this kind of metacognitive activity? So it was some of the further study that I wanted to pursue. Yeah. So I think that's all for my talk. Thank you so much. Maybe I can answer for the questions.
Yeah, maybe if we have a few direct questions for you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, just feel free to ask.
So what's the follow-up stage for this work that you're planning to do?
Basically, I want to explore their performance at back end, so that if they stay in some word, or how many times they repeated the same video clip, and what's the impact of the repetition, or maybe long staying can impact better, or if they search for more vocabulary, because it's my finding was based on my inquiry, like from the semi-structured interview. So if I get more scientific data from backend system, I can directly compare that with their performance. Yeah.
Were there specific results that related to the video platform? The use of drama videos that were different from using any other types of audio-visual materials?
Okay, so one of the difference is I use the authentic video, so it's not really it's not modified, or it's not done any changes for educational purposes. So I use the authentic information I brought in to the students to understand how they actually can learn from this authentic video. So actually a lot of activities, a lot of job is left with them. So I didn't do much about what they can do with this. I basically provide them all the information. But after that, they have to handle their own performance, their work, activity, interaction. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, that's a fairly big difference. Using
Yes.
found video versus prepared video
Yes,
segments.
correct. Yes.
So I'm wondering about the pedagogical implications of that. I mean, in certain ways, using something that's found, that's popular, has an intrinsic interest. Well, on the other hand, this may not be pedagogically very well motivated.
That's true.
In terms of illustrating the sentence structure or vocabulary. So do you have any sense? I mean, I know your sample size is small, but do you have any sense that
So we have the first version of motion dictionary, which I showed you just now. But the second version, now we are in beta version, is they are watching the whole video. It's like 1 hour drama episode. Then we maybe we identify some of the target words they had to study. Then when target was spoken by the actor or actresses, the video will pause, and then they have to understand what it means and take them to the quiz place. So while they are watching the whole episode, they need to understand some of the target words that at the end of watching the video, they need to go through clarifying if they understood all these words, target words clearly. So it's a bit different approach. So it's like, they need to search. This first version, they need to search, and then all this information was provided from various resources. But the second version is like they will be exposed to this, natural drama watching activity. While watching, they need to also go through these target words. Yeah.
So the second version, the beta version, seems much more passive.
Yes.
In the sense that they don't have to actively interact with the system. The system will just run the video, and then at a certain time, this will come.
Yes. So actually, the Rakuten Institute of Technology, for them, to handle the mass viewers, the second version, to them is more efficient in terms of for the market.
Sure.
Yeah, because they do not want to specifically use the drama only to learn Korean, but they also enjoy the drama clip, at the same time can learn some of the expressions or words. Yeah.
The academic outcome is being able to define the word, use the word.
The grade that I compared, right? So the grade that I compared is a general performance in language. So it's the outcome of the whole module. Yeah.
I'm guessing that people at different stages of learning will use the tool more or less or differently. So that'll be interesting as you study it more. You'll be able to study it and use it in new learners as well as more experienced learners.
Yeah.
And then is there a way, because it is a small sample size, a way to on this so you can see more, get a little bit more information how people are using it?
So it was.
Very generalized.
Yeah, so the data collection was just done December, and I was only one who can interview all the students, so I couldn't really, explore many students. Also, the module size was not very big, but yeah, it will be great if I can collect the data more next semester. So maybe my plan is I will conduct the same study with a new batch of students in the same module. Yeah, so that, by that I can add up more information about that. Yeah. Yeah. But I do agree with you, like, maybe students in different level of language proficiency, they may understand the information differently, or they may use the same tool in a different way. Yes.
I'm just curious to know how presenting the vocab items in the motion dictionary, how does it help with social linguistic competence, which you are right, we should be teaching. But using the motion dictionary, I don't really see how it helps with the alternative expressions kind of.
Oh, okay. So actually, I didn't show the whole website, but the video will be played when you click the sentence. So if for 10 seconds, the actor and actress actually speaking in the video clip.
Yeah,
so they can watch
it. And they use the vocab item, but it doesn't really expose you to alternative ways of saying this, alternative ways of using this vocab item to tune into social linguistic competence.
Oh, because there will be various samples, so there will be many.
Ways.
Yes. There will be like all the samples will be extracted to show as a list, so they can go through the older samples. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay,
maybe we can have some other questions after.
Thank you.